The boy looks in front of him. There are multiple army tanks coming towards him. Army men are standing in front with guns, and the boy is standing in front of them. Behind him, dead army members covered in blood are seen on the ground. This young boy stands in the center, with blue light emitting from his body. He is also a little injured, with a wound on his forehead and blood drooling from his mouth. He looks at the men and apologizes. The leader does not listen to him and orders the troop to fire, and the army tank shoots directly at the boy. Fire coming out of the tank. His eyes light up blue, and the light travels through his body. With his power, he causes the ground to move to a lower level. The ground has gone down, causing him to go deeper level into the ground, escaping the shot fired by the tank. He thinks about how one day he is a fish swimming in the nearby lake. Another day he is a bird flying in the open sky. And on some days he is a small ant walking along in a group. And sometimes he is a great dinosaur. He has experienced everything, from the heat of a volcano eruption until the flowers start to bloom in spring, and just like that, he has lived and died thousands of times as different beings, remembering all of his past lives. He remembers being an elephant and getting shot by a hunter. When he died, he thought how the humans had caught him again. He had millions of years worth of memories, and the only being he feels hostile towards are humans. The hunter climbed on the body of the elephant, and his accompanying hunter clicked a picture that he had hunted a huge elephant. Every time he reached the end of his life, getting killed and consumed by a stronger being was a given. This was just the natural way things worked, and he was fine with that. The hunter starts cutting the tusk of the elephant, probably to sell. However, he knows these human beings take the lives of others for enjoyment. The methods that they use are countless and are constantly improving, which makes countermeasures irrelevant. The elephant lies on the ground, tuskless. In thousands of his lives, he was killed by humans. Even though death was nothing for him, he still felt hatred towards the human species. Death approaches. With millions of years worth of lives, every time he approaches the doors of death, he has these questions. What kind of being? Would he be reborn as this time, and why does he have the ability to be reborn? And when will all of this end? He pleads he does not want to be reborn again. As he closes his eyes, he sees a blue light. He feels the pain of birth, as if his entire body is being crushed. The pain he feels this time feels like he is going to be a mammal. After all of his past experiences, he has never felt pain this great. The pain is getting him excited for his new life. From his past experience, more pain means better chances of being at the top of the food chain. He wonders how much time has passed. After escaping from the layer that covered him, he feels cold air. He opens his eyes slowly, along with the warm touch that opposes the chilling surroundings. Although his vision is still blurry, he can tell immediately. He is a human infant in his mother's arms. He is born as the only being he felt hostile towards. He was reborn as a human being. Lee Ja-in was his human name. This was the sound of people calling him. A nurse called his name, and his mother held his hand. This was his first rebirth, where he had a name. The lives of humans are complicated. All of them are alive, yet they draw distinctions between countries and races. They name everything in the world and give everything a meaning. He and his mother go inside the doctor's room. The doctor looks at his test results, sharing that Lee Ja-in does not have any problems looking from the reports he shared with his mother. She asks the doctor why it is that her son cannot talk. The doctor shares that he is still 6. It is just too early for him. She is angry, expressing that this is not the problem. He barely shows any response, even when she is trying to talk to him. He did not even cry when he was born. She shares her concern. The doctor, a little startled by the lady's anger, explains that there is nothing wrong with him physically. He wonders if it is something psychological then. She does not understand what she asked the doctor. He hesitantly states that why she tried taking him to a psychiatrist. She gets angry. To a psychiatrist, a hospital for psychos. What is he trying to say? Is he trying to say that her child may be crazy? The doctor tries to calm her down, as this is not what he meant. She is more furious. How can she be calm right now? His mother's name is Youngshil. She is stupid and ignorant. She lost her family in a war and lost her husband to another war not much later. To her, the world was too harsh and cruel, but now she had her son, a block of blood, to care for. To make ends meet, she would put him on her back and sell vegetables at the local market. They live in a small house. Youngshil is laying, and beside her is Lee Ja-in is laying. She once heard that babies would grow up properly if they listened to people talking politely. Despite the lack of response, Youngshil would constantly tell Lee Ja-in that she loves him. He could not understand what she said, but that warm feeling. Ja-in did not hate that, and in this life, There was one glaring difference he noticed. A frog is on the ground, hoping when a bunch of people come running, scaring the frog. A man is escaping, but his foot hits a rock and he falls on the ground. The men chasing him stop, and one of them asks what is the point of him making them run in the middle of the night. The man on the ground is trembling. He pleads for his life. The chief detective replies how he can let him live. He is a commie. He protests he is not a commie. He really is not. He asks him to get up, and they can listen to him later, but he tries to move away. The man threatens him that if he would not stop, he will have to drag him back. As he is saying this, he looks from the corner of his eye. He sees a boy standing on a tree trunk with blue light in his eyes. They are surprised to see a kid at such a height. The man warns him it is dangerous up there and asks him to come down. Lee Ja-in thought it would be perfect to test it out now. Jumps from the trunk and lands like a frog on the ground. Everyone is shocked. What just happened? How did he land from such a height? He then tries something else. He has blue light like energy in his feet, and he runs like a cheetah towards them. One of them takes out a gun. But before he could pull the trigger, he used his fist as an Argentinosaurus and punches him. The man is on the ground, his head bleeding. He was sure now he has an ability he never had before. All the beings that had once lived, he was born with all their abilities. Why was this happening? He does not know. However, it was clear to him. The end of his long journey, this life was his last life. He looked at the person on the ground. The detective was furious at the child. He starts shouting at the kid, and his accompanying man stands there in shock. Lee Ja-in knew that finally he could die. They are all scared, looking at one of their members being killed by a boy with just his bare hands. The boy is also looking at his hand in disbelief. The man punches the boy, asking who the hell he is. The boy falls on the ground. The man is amazed. He does not seem that strong. As he is on the ground with his punch, the boy tries to get back on his feet. Ja-in feels the pain. He understands that if he does not manifest anything, he is just a normal human. He sits up and looks at him. The detective is angry, calls the child a piece of shit, and hits him again. But this time, the child is unbothered. The detective gets his hand broken. He manifested himself as a turtle. He holds the man by his neck. The man is struggling for his life. He uses his power as a chimpanzee and strangles him. As long as he manifests, he can be anything. He strangles the man, but then the commie on the ground picks up the gun and shoots at the kid. Ja-in is shocked. He has just been shot. He looks at the man with the gun and understands he made a mistake. The shot has been fired. The child and the man both lie on the ground. The man with the gun is terrified. He runs in the opposite direction. 3 men lie on the ground, unconscious. Some time passes. The kid tries to get up. He turns around on his back. He understands, like in his past life, he got hit by that weird thing again. It hurts. He puts his hand on his stomach where he was hurt. The gun has pierced through his internal organs. He wonders if he is going to die. He lays there looking at the sky. His body is lifted and he pukes on the ground. He gets up and manifests a sea cucumber, and he lived. His wound begins to heal. His survival instinct saved him. He thought there was nothing left for him to experience, but what he felt was interesting. He was surprised that this small body has that ability. It does not make sense. Well, he guesses that is just how things are. He can hear something. Young Shil is howling Ja-in, his son's name. She is shouting for her son's name. People are getting up from their sleep, wondering what has happened, as it is still early in the morning. She is shouting, asking where her son is. People are wondering if her son ran away. She is shouting his name, Ja-in, Ja-in. He looks at a bird sitting on a scarecrow. He looks at the bird, sets his target, and runs towards it and eats the bird. He may not be fully grown yet, but he can hunt for himself. He chews on the bird. He thinks there is no reason for him to be with his mother. He remembers her saying, "I love you," to him. He stands in the grass alone and starts to move. His mother howls, calling out her son. 4 days later, he is walking, but the heat gets the best of him, and he falls on the ground. He is exhausted. His body is burning all over, and his stomach is upset. He wonders if the food he is eating is the problem. He lays on the ground. He thought humans were omnivores. He thinks of the bird, snakes, and rabbit. He wonders what the problem is. Even after millions of lives, he has never felt this feeling before. He thinks this is the feeling of death, but it's okay, as he does not have any regret. If that was really the end, he lies there, thinking like he is getting drowned in water, but then someone comes up. It is his mother. She calls out his name and picks him up and puts him in her lap. He was about to die, but he started to understand he was hungry. He wants to eat food made by this human. He thinks her crying is very loud and wonders how long she is going to cry for. He wants to tell her to stop and give him food. He then thinks that it would be better to make her stop crying and decides to speak human words that he could not understand. She thinks about the words that Youngshil always said with a smile. He says, "I love you," to his mother. Listening to this, contrary to Jaehyun's intentions, the stupid, ignorant Youngshil, Jaehyun's mother, starts to cry even harder. He hugs her tight. The sunset that night was really beautiful. As Youngshil hugs her son, Jaehyun decides he needs to stay like this a little longer. Until he can become independent, he will try leading his life as a human. The commie who ran away goes to his boss. He is amazed. A kid. A kid did that to him, he confirms. He emphasizes that is what he has been saying. He killed that kid. He asks him where the kid's body is then, and why Detective On's body was the only thing at the scene. He is amazed. How could that happen, as he was sure that the kid got hit with the gun? He confronts him. So was he the one that shot Detective On? He says he did not. He asks the other man to say something. Why was he not saying a thing? He also saw the same thing. He shot the kid to save him. Both the boss and the commie look at him. He replies, why was Hellas' boss believing him, believing a commie's words? Why was he taking him seriously? He shares he is tired and asks him to end the conversation quickly and take care of him. He pulls his hair, protesting. Why was he doing this to him? He even saw everything himself. He keeps on saying the detective was killed by the kid and that he shot the kid, calling the kid a monster. The man who was at the scene lit a cigarette and smoked it. In the town, after that day, Youngshil was so afraid that he would get lost again. She always held his hand. She was warm, and so was her smile. He did not hate what Youngshil had done for him, which is why he thought it could get dangerous. Time passed, and winter came. Youngshil always protected Jaehyun. She shouted at kids in school who hit him, calling them thugs. The teacher tried to calm her by explaining fighting is a common occurrence among kids. This made her even more furious, shouting at the teacher also, as what he said is not something one should say to a mother, commenting he should not raise kids into fighters. She then again shouted at the kids that if they dared lay a hand on her son one more time, she would crush their hands and wrists. Jaehyun knew that Youngshil was only nice to him. Some other day, two old women were sitting, cleaning sardines and talking about Jaehyun, how Youngshil's kid never talks and looks so empty. The other responded that there may be something wrong with him then. Youngshil overheard this, calling them old hags. She picked up the sardines and threw them away, furious at them, asking what was wrong with them. They are frightened by the anger. She confronted them, asking them if they were done talking about her kid. And how dare they say there was something wrong with him. She said to them that they have lived enough now and it is time for them to be on their way, as nobody needs their opinion. Some other day, she was shouting at a man, telling him that he must love their country, but the country has never done anything for them. She adds her father died to a shot, and she became an orphan. Her husband died the same way, and she became a widow. And now they want to take her spot where she sells vegetables. She highlights how she has worked there since her son was in her stomach, asking them what they think of themselves. Jaehyun stands there without saying a word. She keeps on shouting that if they force her to move, her son, and she will die of starvation. She lays on the ground in a dramatic way, telling the men that she will not move. Instead, they can just kill her. While on the ground, she again shouted, and if they are not planning to kill her, then they can piss right off. Youngshil was constantly fighting against the world. As time passed in this manner, spring came. He had finally gotten used to the human body and lifestyle. Youngshil and Jaehyun were in a field of daisies. She plucked a flower and placed it behind her ear. She looks at Jaehyun, asking him how she looks, asking him if his mom is pretty. Jaehyun looks at her without saying a word. When they started to think about leaving, Youngshil gets up from the field and asks him to go and have some food. She extends her hand to hold Jaehyun's hand. Youngshil's hands were warm but rough, he noticed. He asks her why she fights with people. She looks at him for one moment and replies she does so she can protect him. He looks at her. The wind blew, and the daisy in her hair flew over. She suggests that it is getting cold and they should go and they can have some meat when they get back. What Jaehyun was worried about happened because he did not want to leave. He wants to spend more time with Youngshil. As they are walking away, the detective picks up the daisy that flew from Youngshil's hair, feeling accomplished as he found him, the monster. The survival of the fittest, the weak became food for the strong. A tiger eating his prey. This is the law that applies to every single being in the world. Every being understands this rule instantly by joining the ranks. However, Their deaths are something one cannot understand. A hand fan made by bird feathers made him think that the bird died, so another could beat the heat. And a jacket made from animal fur, the animal dies, another stays good in the cold. Scientists experimenting on rats, and they die for another pursuit of innovation, a leather purse. One dies, so another gets to carry money. He looks at an animal's head on the wall. Some die for others' decoration, and some deaths are for purchases for enjoyment. He thinks how unfortunate that is, and that is the reason why he does not like humans. Lee Ja-in is in a river with a basket collecting shells. It has been 12 years since his birth. He has finally gotten used to human society. Over the past couple of years, their neighborhood has changed a lot. The roads have become straighter and the buildings have become taller, he notices as he walks in the neighborhood. As he crosses a bridge with his collected shells, he notices smoke coming out of a factory and dirty water being discarded in the river. A new factory has sprouted near the river in front of their house. He reaches home. Young Shil is sleeping on the floor. She has gotten sick. The first time, when he ate the fish and spit some of it out, Young Shil scolded him. Why was he throwing the meat out? Was there a bone in it? He looked at the seafood on the plate and instinctively knew he hated that food. She scolded him, explaining how good this food is for him and how hard it was for her to catch it, and she forced him to eat it, feeding him with chopsticks, asking him to open up. He responded he did not want it. She was amazed, as this was the first time he rebelled, and said angrily then he could not eat, and she would have it all, stating how people would beg to have a bite of this food. She angrily chewed her food, saying under her breath that he should not eat it. She would finish it all. Back then he should have stopped Young Shil from eating it, as that made her sick. She uses a cloth and puts it on her forehead to help the fever go down. She opens her eyes to see Ja-in and then closes them again when she sees him moving. She asks him if he is going to school. He nods. She gives him a faint smile, asking him to have a good day. He did not go to school. He went to the market to sell fruits. He thinks how humans destroy everything for their comfort, and their comfort leads to others' pain. He wonders why Young Shil had to be the one in pain. As he sits there with the apples, thinking all this, a man comes up to him, inspecting the apples, commenting how they look good. He asks how much the fruit is. He replies, 10 won. He takes a bite of the apple, saying it is expensive. He thinks everyone is unique. Human society came up with laws to maintain peace in order to contain limitless behavior. He had broken the law that nobody should ever break: murder. The man comments how good it is. He is the same man from that night. He shares he planned to visit earlier. He wanted to watch him. He wanted to see how someone does not respond. The boy was handcuffed. If he was okay like this, he investigated for a reason. He does not say a word. He confirms if he is a spy, and his mom would be one too. They will send people to get her. This made him worry. She does not seem to be in good health. He wonders if she can handle the investigation. His body begins to emit blue light. The detective is meant to get away from him, as they might die with him. They are confused. He then takes a step on the floor hard, which leads to the ground breaking. He runs from there. They are confused. What happened? The boy runs, breaking the floor as he runs. The detective is curious. What is it? What happened? That bastard ran away. The man then asks, but they do not understand. He is a monster. That day he became a disaster. He roamed around the city filled with tall buildings. The reason humans were considered the center of the world, despite their weak physical constitution, was language. Sophisticated communication allowed humans to form groups and build civilizations unlike any other species. He understood their language as well. Even so, he could never forget Young Shil and her smile. He was confused. Was she a blessing, or was she a curse? That day, he ran from the river and swam through the water like a fish. Meanwhile, at the police station, a man asked the detective who was smoking a cigarette if he was all right. The detective looked confused about everything that had happened. The man explained that he saw the detective getting scolded by the chief earlier. His colleague mentioned that he also found the situation strange. The fact that a 12-year-old was being treated like a spy, and that so many people had been mobilized just to capture him. He heard that the chief forced everything through using his authority. The detective responded that he agreed. The man then asked why the detective had tried to stop them earlier. Thinking about the boy and the look in his eyes, the detective replied that he did it because he was scared. That same evening, 2 men arrived at Young Shil's house, confirming whether it was the correct place. They came with a group of people and ordered them to drag her out. They began calling out, asking if anyone was inside the house. At the same time, high in the sky, Ja-in flew toward the house. People gathered outside, waiting for a response. Then suddenly, behind them, Ja-in landed. Everyone immediately turned around, shocked by the child who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. They looked confused, wondering what that was and where he had come from. One of the men asked him if he was the kid who lived in the house. Ja-in quietly agreed. The detectives spoke among themselves, saying they did not think Chief Kim had made a mistake after all. One of them asked his partner to just look at the condition of the child. The other responded that they would know once they investigated further and told him to take the boy for now. He replied that he understood. Calmly, the detective asked the child to come with them for a while. Ja-in's expression tightened as he prepared himself to attack. But at that exact moment, Young Shil opened the door. She still looked terribly sick and weak as she asked what was wrong. Then she looked at Ja-in, confused about what had happened. The detective remarked that she must be the mother and pointed out how ill she looked. He explained that they were only following orders and instructed the men to take them in. One of the men placed his hand on Ja-in's shoulder and told him to follow them. Young Shil became confused and frightened. What was happening? What did these men think they were doing? She immediately tried to run toward them, demanding to know where they thought they were taking her son. They had better let him go. But as she tried to approach him, several men blocked her path. She began shouting desperately, telling everyone around them that these men were trying to kidnap them and begging for help. The men attempted to stop her, saying that the child should not witness this. However, despite her weak condition, she pushed one of the men away with all her strength, demanding that he let go of her. She continued screaming for everyone to listen, shouting that they were being kidnapped. The detective watched in shock, wondering how she still had that much strength when she looked like she was close to death. Another man responded that maybe she was pretending and that she might actually be a spy. Young Shil shouted once again at the top of her lungs, begging everyone to help them. Suddenly, a man approached from behind and told her to shut up, calling her a commie before punching her directly in the face. Young Shil fell hard onto the ground. At that moment, Ja-in became furious. Language could describe almost every situation, but the moment he saw Young Shil being struck so violently, something inside him broke. He felt rage bubbling up from deep within himself, and just like that, he abandoned his sanity completely. In an instant, everyone around him died. Young Shil looked at him in complete shock, unable to believe what her son had done. He had killed all of those men. Crying desperately, his mother called out his name. He had done it again. He had killed again. At that moment, Detective Kim arrived in his car. As soon as he saw the horrifying scene before him, he became excited and immediately told his partner that everything he had been saying was true. He declared that the boy was a monster. He warned his men not to go near him because they would die just like everyone else. Ja-in looked toward them and wondered if he should kill them too. But before anything could happen, Young Shil suddenly stepped in front of him to protect him. She shouted that she was the one who killed them and begged them to take her away instead. She insisted that she did it. She killed them all. Her son had done nothing. Everything was her fault. Young Shil, who barely even had enough energy to eat, was now running around frantically trying to protect him. Ja-in could not understand why she was doing this. Then he remembered the day in the daisy field when he asked her why she fought so hard. She had cried and howled that day, and she told him that she fought to protect him. Looking at Young Shil now, the giant slowly began to cry. He walked and walked. He thought about the years he spent with his mom, how she peacefully slept next to him. It felt like an instant compared to the millions of years he had already experienced. That instant meant everything to him. He felt the endless love that he had never experienced before. He remembered the walk through the field of daisies. He felt endless happiness. He looked to the sky. However, his mom was no longer there. He stopped suddenly, realizing that she died because of him. No life or death was ever this painful for him. He looked down and felt sadness. He remembered his mother's words, to live. He started walking again and looking at the sun said okay to his mother that he would live. A hunter was standing in a field covered in snow. He looked around and chose a bird as his target. He aimed at the bird with his gun and killed it. The bullet hit the bird and its blood splattered on the ground. He laughed, happy that he got his target. He then saw someone beyond the bird. It was Lee Jae-in, the kid. He looked tired, his clothes torn from bullet holes. He asked the kid how he got there. These hunting grounds were dangerous. He looked at the dead bird on the ground. The hunter asked the kid if it was his first time seeing a pheasant. He grabbed the bird by the neck and showed him it was big. He shared it was his first time seeing one this big in a while. Ja-in asked the hunter if he was proud of his hunt. He was confused by this question and does not reply. Ja-in gave him a dreaded look and activated his manifestation. This made the man anxious. He asked the kid where his parents were. Lee Ja-in replied that they were dead. He dropped the bird on the ground and took off his jacket. He wrapped it around the kid's neck, saying it was winter time. Was he not feeling cold? Why was he wearing a short sleeve? He took his hand and asked him to head to his place for now. He did not resist. As they reached the man's house, he announced to his mother that he was back. She was standing outside the house. He asked why she was waiting in the cold. He told her to go inside. The man asked the kid to first wash up before they ate, as he smelled. Food was served. The meat looked delicious. The man was happy and announced that today they were having some pheasant meat. He asked the kid if he was not hungry and told him to dig in. He looked at the food. Some noises were coming that Jae-in heard. The man commented that it was loud. The mountain over there was going through construction. He wondered why they called it a risotto. The boy said nothing. The man again tried starting the conversation, asking what brought him all the way out to these mountains. He replied that he just walked there. A little surprised that he walked there, he replied that it was not the greatest place for a kid to live. He suggested they could go to the village sometime tomorrow, and he would ask the chief to find someone who would take care of him. He needed to go to school. He ate rice and meat with his chopsticks. He then bumped his fist on his head and asked him to learn how to talk to his elders respectfully. He was surprised by this sudden bump and looked at him with wide eyes. It was night time. The house had some snow on the roof. He saw pictures of the man as a baby with his mother and father, and then a picture of just his mother and him all grown up, and one of his father alone. He lay there between the mother and son and looked at the pictures, unable to sleep, staring at the roof. In the morning, they gave some clothes for Jae-in to wear. The clothes looked very large on his lean body. The man noticed that they were a little too long for him, so he helped fold the sleeves and adjusted the pants to fit better. "There, now it's perfect," he said before adding, "Let's go." He told his mother that he would be back soon. His mother waved her hand and quietly said goodbye. Jae-in looked at the old lady. The two of them walked through the snow with every tree around them covered in white. Jae-in asked the man why his mother did not talk much. The man lightly bumped his head again and asked if he did not know how to speak properly to his elders. Jae-in did not like him touching his head. The man explained that his mother could not speak and she also could not hear very well. Jae-in looked at him and asked that if she could not hear, then why did he keep talking to her? The man replied that even if she could not hear, she still understood him. As long as she understood his intentions, that was all that mattered. Jae-in listened carefully and nodded. As they continued walking, it suddenly started raining, and the man became worried. He said it was raining quite heavily, though it looked like it might stop soon and the kid could catch a cold. He suggested they take shelter until the rain stopped. Soon, the rain began pouring even harder, and the construction materials nearby started getting soaked. The man looked confused as they took shelter beneath some rocks. Why was it raining so heavily during winter? Then the storm worsened. Tree trunks began falling because of the strong winds. Rocks and trees tumbled down the mountain. Jae-in was thrown to the side while the man became trapped beneath a large rock and piles of soil. Even then, the man asked if the kid was okay. Jae-in stared at the man buried beneath the rocks. He immediately began removing the stones and dirt from his body. The man weakly asked the kid what he was supposed to do now. Jae-in told him to wait and promised he would get him out. The man worried about his mother. Jae-in thought about his own mother and about how the old lady would lose her son. He could not allow that to happen. Eventually, the man lost consciousness. Jae-in looked at him, wondering what he should do now while the rain still poured heavily. Then he remembered what the man had once said, that the mountain nearby was undergoing construction. He tried to remember what the place was called and recalled that it was called a ravioli. He rescued the man and carried him over his shoulders. Walking through the heavy rain, he searched for the way back to their house. When they finally arrived, the man's mother was standing outside in the rain, holding an umbrella in her hand and another umbrella prepared for her son. The moment she saw her son being carried by the child, she looked horrified and dropped the umbrella in shock. Later, after the rain had stopped, Jae-in sat outside and thought about that day in the field of daisies, about all the people who had died. To be honest, he realized that he had been taking out his anger on humans when he said he would kill every single one of them and leave no one behind. He was still uncertain about his decision. He hesitated. Looking down at his hands, he realized he did not know what was right or wrong. Then he remembered a conversation with his mother. She had been looking at a test paper where he had received low marks. She asked him why his score was so low and joked that he was just like her. He explained that it was not because he wanted to score badly, but because he genuinely did not know what the right answer was. She told him that he should have at least tried. Even if he did not know the answer, he would never learn if he refused to try. He argued back, asking what he was supposed to do if he truly did not know the answer. Now, looking up at the sky, he thought about his mother once again. At the Jun Resort opening ceremony, the ribbon was being cut while people applauded and celebrated. One man suddenly noticed someone approaching from far away. Another person looked in the same direction. It was a child. The man angrily shouted at his subordinates, asking if there were no guards at the entrance. What were they doing on such an important day, allowing anyone to enter like that? One of the subordinates hurried over. The man ordered them to get rid of the child immediately. A guard approached Ja-in and tried to stop him, telling him he was not allowed there and ordering him to leave. But then the guard noticed something horrifying behind him, bloody footprints, and dead security guards lying on the ground. Ja-in remembered his mother's words, "If one does not know what to do, then they should just try. Whether they score 20 points or 0, it is okay to be wrong." The man became terrified after seeing the guards murdered by the child. If Ja-in truly had it within him, then humans would die by his hands, and the only reason for killing them would simply be because he wanted to. Ja-in was constantly improving. He looked over the town, watching the number of factories continue to increase, with smoke pouring out of them and polluting the world. He thought it was not easy. Blood dripped from his hands as he stood at the edge of a building terrace. However, he believed he could do it. Bodies of guards and people from the opening event lay scattered across the ground, dead with multiple wounds and scars. As the sun set, he visited the grave of the man. Beside it was his mother's grave. He thought that perhaps after losing her son, the mother had died from shock. Only a few days after the man passed away, she had been found dead in her sleep. He sat outside their house and thought about how he first needed to understand what powers he actually possessed. At that moment, he could call upon the abilities of all living beings. He looked at his hand and realized he could become anything. But there was one problem. If he was not actively thinking, his body would return to that of a normal human being. He could not continue like this. 1 year passed. A train sped down the tracks. The driver focused ahead when he suddenly noticed a boy standing directly on the railway tracks. He immediately honked and slammed the brakes, trying to stop the train, but the boy did not move. Instead, he stared at the driver with a deadly gaze. The train screeched loudly before finally stopping. Angry, the driver climbed out to scold the boy, only to realize that the child was gone. Using the toughness of a corbiculid's teeth, Ja-in had managed to maintain that state within his subconsciousness as he silently walked away from the tracks and into the fields. Another year passed. A cat rested on top of Lee Ja-in's head, while different wild animals slept around him, a rabbit, a bear, and several deer. He had learned how to communicate with all living beings. It was not through spoken words. If he had to describe it in one word, he would call it telepathy. It was easier than he expected, almost like a sixth sense. He gently placed a hand over the bear, comforting it. While understanding animals on a basic level did help, much of it was due to the human nature of his body. All kinds of creatures were drawn toward him. Rats, cats, wild animals like bears and boars, and countless other species surrounded him. Most living beings on Earth naturally tended to like humans. He found that thought questionable. 5 years passed. Lee Ja-in's body had fully reached adulthood. His hair had grown out, and he now resembled his mother. Since he had reached physical maturity, he believed it would be beneficial to preserve his body in this state. So he accomplished that using the abilities of a turtle. 10 years passed. The town became filled with even more factories, and pollution spread everywhere. Water bodies were contaminated with plastic bottles, factory waste, and garbage. He sat somewhere deep within the mountains, resting on the grass. It was then that he realized his communication abilities were not limited to living beings alone. He touched the soil beneath him, the dirt, the water, and even the plants. He could communicate with all of them. He understood then that life existed within them as well. He could feel the earth suffering. He could feel that it was dying. 30 years passed. He continued training his abilities, and eventually there seemed to be no limit to what he was capable of. In addition to that, he discovered that combining abilities was possible. That meant all of his preparations were finally complete. And now, he wondered if he should finally do it. Lee Ja-in had grown much older now. His hair was long and he wore ragged clothes. With his hands folded, he thought about how simple it would be. He would send heat deep into the ground and apply pressure. Repeating this a few times would result in an earthquake, a massive earthquake that would tear the world apart. With his current powers, there were 6 places across the world where he could cause earthquakes of the same magnitude, earthquakes powerful enough to split the 6 continents into pieces, with more than half of them swallowed by the rough sea. No human would survive such a catastrophe. He imagined himself standing upon a mountain of human skulls. This would be the extinction of the human race, and that was exactly what would happen. It was simple. He began using his energy while keeping his hands folded toward the earth, but he knew humans would not be the only creatures to die. Even so, he would do it. He would do it. Yet he still hesitated. He had been alone for decades. Should he not see what humans were like now? He had watched them since their inception. The only memories he still held onto were of his mother and the kind hunter he once met. Since he could destroy everything whenever he wanted, he stopped and decided there was no need to rush. He went to a beach, only to find waste scattered everywhere along the shore. No matter where he went, mountains, rivers, or forests, there was garbage everywhere. Plastic bottles, plastic bags. Even if he searched endlessly, there was not a single place untouched by human influence. He walked along a road and stared at it. Not long ago, this place had been a forest field blooming with acacia flowers, and now it was nothing but a solid concrete road. He was tired. Too tired. At this point, he was ready to kill them all. As he stood in the middle of the road, a car with blinding headlights drove toward him. He thought about the noise and how he wanted to silence sounds that did not belong in this world. Using his energy, he caused an earthquake. The road began to crack apart, and rocks from the mountain above started falling toward the car. The female driver quickly swerved the vehicle. She screamed at the top of her lungs when she saw a person standing in the middle of the road. As Jae-in looked at the woman shouting inside the car, he suddenly remembered his mother with a daisy flower in her hair, asking him how she looked. Trying to save him, the girl turned the car sharply in another direction, causing it to crash into a tree. The car teetered dangerously near the edge of a cliff. Seeing this, Lee Jae-in instinctively rushed forward and stopped the car from falling. The girl sat frozen inside, gripping the steering wheel tightly with her eyes shut in fear. When she slowly opened her eyes, she saw Jae-in standing upside down in front of her. She screamed at the sight of his long-haired appearance. Suddenly, another massive rock from the mountain came crashing down. The rock crushed Jae-in's body, and blood began to pour from him. He noticed that it hurt. The girl quickly reversed the car back onto the road, and as she did, Jae-in collapsed onto the ground. He was confused. Why had this happened? The girl stepped out of the car to check on him. He wondered why he had been hurt. His powers should have manifested unconsciously to protect him. Then he remembered. That was right. The point was to stop himself from thinking entirely. The girl stood over him, staring. The two of them looked strangely alike. Jae-in looked at her as his eyes slowly began to close. It had been a long time since he had experienced something like this. Loss, failure, the passage of time, death. He was confused. Death, everything after that became a blur. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself lying in a hospital bed with the girl and a nurse standing nearby. The nurse explained that he had recently gone through surgery, so he would be experiencing some pain. His head was wrapped in bandages. He touched his head and asked if he had really undergone surgery. The nurse confirmed that he had. She explained that although they had not been able to obtain consent from his guardians, there had been no records matching his identity, so the doctor decided to proceed with the surgery anyway, and thankfully, it had gone well. The nurse then asked him for his name. He quietly repeated his name. The nurse explained that they had no information about him, so she needed him to properly tell her his name. He remained silent. Both of them looked confused. Finally, he replied that it was strange, but he could not remember. The girl noticed his dialect. His head began to ache. A memory of his mother surfaced, and he finally remembered a name. Lee Jae-in. The doctor read through the report. Lee Jae-in, age unknown, current address unknown, no records found. Patient also appears to have memory loss. The doctor asked the nurse if the information was correct, and she confirmed it. The doctor then looked at the girl who had brought him to the hospital and commented on how unfortunate the situation was. 3 months later, she estimated that he was somewhere in his mid-20s. At a police office, the girl arrived carrying his reports. The detective explained that even after expanding their records to include people in their 40s, they still could not find a single match. He did not even have fingerprints in the system, which made the case even stranger. They had absolutely no idea who he could be. Another officer agreed and added that there was nothing about him on any nearby CCTV footage either. The girl grew frustrated. There was no point staying there any longer. What was she even supposed to do in a situation like this? The detective explained that they had never handled a case like this before. It was complicated. He remembered nothing except his name, and they were not even sure if that was his real name. The doctor also suspected that he might have complete memory loss, or perhaps he was even an illegal immigrant. The girl asked what they were supposed to do now. The detective explained that things would have been easier if he had a guardian. The word guardian lingered in her mind. Back at the hospital, a nurse called out, "Guardian of Lee Ja-in." She called once again, "Guardian of Lee Ja-in." Ja-in looked at the girl and asked if the nurse was calling for her. She sighed and admitted that yes, she was. The nurse explained that the discharge paperwork was ready and asked her to fill out the forms. She walked to the reception and signed the documents. She looked back at him, but he said nothing. The two of them walked out of the hospital together, and Ja-in looked up at the sky. He asked her if something was wrong because she did not look well. She gave him a strange look and told him that she wanted to make one thing clear. It was not her fault. It had been a landslide. She did not need to feel responsible or indebted to him because of what happened. He looked confused and asked why she kept repeating the same thing. She turned toward him and added that apparently he was in his mid-20s. Since younger was better, she had registered him as 24 years old. Then she casually mentioned that she herself was 34, much older than him, even though she was shorter in height. He thought to himself, the younger, the better. What was she going to do now that she was old? She stared at him with a dead expression. Since she was older, she decided to speak frankly with him. He replied that she could do whatever she wanted. She immediately pointed out that she had just told him she was older. Did he not have any manners? Did she need to teach him manners too? Technically, his actual estimated age was around 3.5 billion years old, but he stayed silent. Eventually, she gave up and told him to forget it. They should just go. He asked where. She explained that while she searched for a place where he could work, he could stay in the dorm where she lived. Once he regained his memories, he could leave. As they walked, he suddenly reached out and held her hand, just like he used to do with his mother. The girl immediately pulled her hand away in shock and asked what the hell he thought he was doing. Had she not just told him that he should not hold someone's hand like that? Confused, he asked why not. She had no proper answer. Rubbing her forehead, she simply told him not to do it. If he really wanted to hold someone's hand, then he should ask first, and only if the other person agreed could he do it. He looked at her and politely asked, "Can I please hold your hand?" She looked even more irritated and asked if he was being serious. Then she told him to at least say it nicely. So once again, he asked politely if he could hold her hand. This time, she did not answer. Instead, she quietly gave him her hand. The warmth instantly returned to him. She then announced that they should get going. Holding her hand made him remember how his mother used to walk with him the same way. A tear slowly rolled down his face. The girl turned around and looked surprised when she saw him crying. She asked why he was crying. He answered honestly, "I do not know why I'm crying." Somewhere in the distance, daisies swayed gently in the wind, and he still did not know why either. Then they went to a coffee shop. It was the girl, her friend, and Lee Ja-in. Her friend confirmed it, asking if she was really living with this person now. The girl replied that, for the time being, yes, while sipping her coffee. Her friend looked at him suspiciously. He turned to her and asked what she was staring at. Her friend was speechless. The girl also had a dog with her who was excited and wanted to play. She asked her friend what she should do, but her friend immediately replied, "Absolutely not." The girl asked what was wrong. He was staying at her place anyway. Her friend said it was weird. The girl asked what exactly was weird. Her friend replied that he had lost his memory. They could not figure out his identity, and even his dialect sounded strange. The girl repeated, "His dialect?" Her friend explained that her mom was from Gyeongsang, so she could tell that he was not used to speaking in that dialect. It sounded off, almost as if he was trying to imitate it. The girl asked why he would imitate the dialect. Her friend replied that she did not know and that she did not think this was a good idea. Forget everything else and think about it logically. He was a man they did not know, yet she was letting him into her house just like that. Was she insane? The girl thought about it and realized her friend was not wrong. She remembered how he had creeped her out earlier and how he had suddenly started crying. She looked at him. He was sitting at a table a little farther away. He noticed them looking and smiled. The girl explained that she was only doing this because she felt somewhat responsible for him. Besides, she usually had a good feeling about these things. Her friend asked, "So what are you feeling right now?" She replied that she felt he was harmless. Her friend still did not look convinced. Both of them looked at him again. He really did seem harmless. Finally, her friend gave up and said she would not be able to convince her otherwise, so they should just go ahead with it. The dog was done playing now and rested on the ground. The girl then told him that there was a small empty room on the highest floor of the cafe where he could stay. He asked, "Can't I stay with you?" She asked if he had no manners. He replied that he wanted to stay with her, though. She answered that she did not want to stay with him. Hearing that, he looked a little sad. She told him not to mess around. They would give him a job and pay him for the time being, at least until he regained his memories. He looked confused and asked if he was not going to live with her. She replied that she would visit often. She then got up and began to leave, asking her friend to take care of him. Her friend looked surprised. "You're leaving already, even though there are customers. Why do not you stay a little longer?" The girl explained that she needed to head home before returning to the facilities. She still had some work she needed to finish. "The facilities?" he asked. Her friend explained that it was where she worked. She worked at a place called the Environmental Industry Facilities. He thought to himself that he wanted to work there too. The girl called for her dog, Royce, and asked if he was ready to go. She removed Royce's leash, but instead of going to her, the dog immediately rushed toward him. She looked confused. That was strange. The dog never went to anyone except her. He looked at the dog, happily climbing all over him, and thought about how she was taking the dog home with her. He kneeled down and gently played with Royce, patting him on the head. The moment he touched the dog, he suddenly felt a strange connection. A memory flashed through his mind, blue light raging from his eyes and spreading throughout his body. He placed a hand on his face in confusion just as a car rushed past nearby. The dog immediately barked at the car. The girl called for the dog to calm down, wondering what had gotten into him. He stared at the passing vehicle and said, "That car..." She explained that it belonged to one of the facilities and asked what was wrong with it. He continued glaring at the car angrily. "A dog's sense of smell is 1,000 times stronger than a human's," he said. By borrowing the abilities of a dog, Jae-in abruptly discovered something unnatural, an unknown living being hidden inside the car. It was an organism born from the bottomless greed of humans. Even in his amnesiac state, he could sense it. The living being inside the car was radiating an overwhelmingly intense emotion. As the car passed by, he could clearly feel what that emotion was: hostility toward the human race. In a conference room, someone is giving a presentation about the hydra, a type of cnidaria. He explains, "Let's just say that cancer is a tumor. This hydra can regenerate its entire body even if only 1 out of 200 parts survives. They are currently examining its healing mechanism as part of their research into cancer treatment." He demonstrates to everyone that, as they can see, if one of its tentacles is cut off, it regenerates again a few days later. Many researchers are currently in the process of creating proteins that can stop this regeneration process. If they can stop it, it might be possible to do the same thing with cancer cells. The people in the conference room look at it and think that it is interesting. The presenter adds that recently one of the affiliate marine companies of the environmental industry facilities found a new breed of this hydra and is now in possession of it. They can take a look at how it appears in the photos, and they have named it Steer. He addresses the audience and says that if they do not mind, he would like to tell them a somewhat boring story. The reason behind Earth's perfection as a planet is balance, from plankton to humans. All creatures on Earth are born with their own set of instincts. Babies drink milk from their mother's breast, chicks hatch out of their eggs. These actions are not taught. They are simply natural instincts toward survival. All organisms on Earth are limited by the natural life and death of their existence, and that natural cycle allows the balance of Earth to be maintained. Let's take one of the smallest beings on Earth, plankton, for example. As the basis of many food chains, plankton play a major role in the formation of clouds. The water in the sea evaporates and becomes condensed into water droplets because of plankton. The collection of those water droplets forms clouds. These clouds reflect sunlight and prevent an increase in Earth's average temperature. The ocean produces half of the oxygen on Earth and determines the weather that changes the fate of this species. The ocean that is essential for life on Earth is dying because of humans. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Jae-in and her friend are both standing behind the counter. As he serves the girls, he asks her where she is going now. She responds that she is going to church. He then asks her friend to let them go too. Her friend asks what is wrong with his attitude and where he thinks she is supposed to go during work hours. He points out that they do not even have any customers. Maybe she should just fire him since they barely have customers anyway. Did she want to see what sleeping on the streets felt like? She replies that she is also a Buddhist. He asks, "A Buddhist?" The girl wonders whether he followed a religion before he lost his memories and asks if he remembers. He looks confused about what religion even is. She asks if he believes in a god or anything like that. He replies that he is not sure if he does. Her friend asks if he is an atheist. Confused again, he asks what that means. She explains that atheists are people who think God does not exist. He says no, because he is sure there is a God. Both of them ask if he is really sure. He says that everything is simply too perfect for there to be no God in the world. The two girls are left speechless after hearing that. Despite losing millions of years of memories on Earth, he still carried a feeling that he was certain about. The world around them is perfect. There is no way they would allow the perfect balance of this world to be ruined. But there are tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, hail, and other natural disasters. Is that not enough proof that a being like Hydra was created to maintain that balance? A being born with the sole purpose of survival. The survival instinct of that being is to drive humanity to extinction. There are only two beings on Earth who share the same purpose. One of them is trapped, while the other no longer remembers himself. Eventually, these two will cross paths with each other, and what happens then is something no one could have predicted. Meanwhile, he looks at his cup of coffee, happy with the coffee art that he created. In his room above the cafe, Dawn came upstairs and looked around at the mess everywhere. She told him that she thought he would clean the room once it became dirty. Ja-in was lying asleep on the floor surrounded by piles of cardboard boxes, yet he had left the room exactly as it was. He did not say anything and simply stared at her. She told him that he should answer when someone was talking to him. He quietly replied, "Okay." She asked him to get up and help move the boxes to one side of the room. He agreed and stood up, lifting one of the boxes while commenting that it contained a lot of books. He asked what all the books were for. Dawn explained that they used to run the cafe as a book cafe. However, none of the customers ever read the books, so they eventually got rid of most of them because they only took up space. Then she told him that he could read them if he ever got bored. She also suggested that he should get a haircut because his hair was becoming pretty messy. She asked if he understood, but instead of answering properly, he became distracted by the title of one of the books, Mysteries of Animals. Then he casually replied, "Okay." Later downstairs at Café Chadu, Dawn began teaching him how to serve customers. She pretended to place an order and welcomed him to the cafe. Then she explained a situation to him. A customer had ordered an Americano and handed him 10,000 won. Ja-in carefully repeated the information, saying that the customer gave him 10,000 won, so he now needed to return 7,000 won as change, make the drink, and serve it to the customer's table. Dawn nodded. A moment later, Ja-in brought over the imaginary drink and politely said that he had prepared the Americano they ordered and hoped they enjoyed it. Dawn stared at him with a strange look. Ja-in asked how he did and whether he had performed well. She explained that it had been a test and decided to give him 90 points. Surprised, Ja-in commented that he had scored pretty high. Dawn replied that something was still missing. She suggested that he try smiling while serving customers because that would probably earn him a perfect score. While they were still talking, actual customers suddenly entered the cafe. Both of them looked surprised as the customers stared at them curiously. Understanding the situation, Ja-in smiled brightly and welcomed them to Café Chadu. Both Dawn and the girl were happy seeing him smile naturally. Meanwhile, the girl from the environmental facility was out on her morning run while listening to music. When she reached the cafe, she was shocked to see it completely filled with customers. Most of them were girls who were openly crushing on the cafe's new employee, Ja-in. She immediately understood why the cafe was suddenly so crowded. Later that evening, after the cafe closed, Dawn calculated the earnings for the day. They had earned 7,75,000 won. Excited, she told Ja-in that he was amazing. Thanks to his smile, customers simply would not stop coming. Ja-in pressed his hands against his cheeks and complained that his face hurt from smiling so much. Dawn laughed and told him not to worry because he could just keep smiling like that. The three of them sat together around a table. Dawn asked the girl why she had come by without calling beforehand. The girl explained that she had only stopped by to check on them while she was out exercising. Dawn assured her that there was no need to worry, because Ja-in was slowly getting used to life there. Meanwhile, Ja-in still held his cheeks because they were hurting. Dawn happily suggested that they should all go drinking together. The girl immediately refused, saying that she could not because she had a date. Then she suddenly changed her mind and said, maybe not. Ja-in asked what about him since he did not have any plans anyway. Maybe he could go drinking with her instead. Later, the two of them went to a bar and sat across from each other. Ja-in kept staring at her face. She asked him what he was staring at and then asked what he wanted to drink. Beer? Soju? Maybe somak. Ja-in admitted that he did not think he had ever tried any of them before. Holding a shot glass in her hand, she replied that he probably just could not remember because she was sure he must have tried plenty before. She told him to eat something while she prepared him an amazing drink. A little later, she handed him a yellow-colored drink and told him to try it. Ja-in picked up the drink and chugged it down immediately. The taste clearly displeased him. She asked if it was good. He replied that it was too bitter. She laughed and told him that he simply did not understand. Then she grabbed her own glass and finished it in a single sip. Ja-in asked why people even drank alcohol in the first place. She explained that people drank in order to get drunk. Ja-in then asked whether something special happened when people got drunk. She answered that, in her opinion, the world was too cruel and harsh. To survive in such a world, people often became cruel and harsh themselves. However, she admitted that she was not really that kind of person. As she poured herself another drink and finished that one too, Ja-in asked what would happen if he became drunk. Looking at her second empty glass, she told him that he would probably become softer and show her his real self. Confused, Ja-in picked up another glass and began drinking while thinking deeply about his real self. Later, both of them drunkenly walked out of the bar together. Ja-in thought that what she said earlier had been a lie because now the entire world looked squiggly around him. She laughed and told him it was fine. Then she explained that she would be heading in a different direction and told him to be careful on his way back. Ja-in insisted that it was dangerous at night and said he would walk her home instead. She asked where he had learned something like that. Ja-in remembered reading a book titled Manners Make the Man. As they walked together, they noticed fireflies glowing nearby. She became amazed and admitted that she had never seen fireflies before. She said they were beautiful. Ja-in looked at the fireflies too and asked if she really liked them. She happily replied that she did because they were very pretty. Ja-in stared closely at one of the fireflies and suddenly something strange happened. The girl watched him in shock as every firefly around them slowly moved toward him and began circling his body. Soon, his entire body glowed brightly, just like the fireflies themselves. Then Ja-in looked at her and asked that now that he was glowing too, did she like him as well? Was he also pretty now? Completely stunned, she shouted in amazement as the fireflies surrounded him from every direction. She started shouting in panic. Ja-in asked her what was wrong, but instead of answering, she suddenly began running in the opposite direction. He still stood there glowing like a firefly. As she ran away, she shouted at him to stay away from her. Ja-in calmly told her to look in front of her. She did not notice the barricade ahead. Beyond it was the forest, and she was about to fall over the edge. As she slipped, she thought she was going to die. At that moment, Ja-in remembered something he had read about cheetahs. While they look similar to panthers, the distinct line pattern running between their eyes and lower jaw makes them different. Compared to other large felines, cheetahs have less muscle mass and are generally smaller, longer, and lighter. Their long legs and powerful core allow them to reach speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour. Even their paw prints are different, with an outer layer that gives them greater traction while running. Using that knowledge, Ja-in leapt forward like a cheetah. The girl closed her eyes as she fell, convinced she was about to die, but within moments he was there. He caught up to her in midair and carried her as they flew through the air together. Their eyes met, and tears filled her eyes. Before she could hit the ground, Ja-in landed safely beneath her and caught her in his arms. Still slightly drunk, he told her that she had scared him and asked if she was okay. Meanwhile, back at the facility, the scientists were discussing the recently discovered hydra species, which they had named Steer. One scientist explained that this creature was the main body. Even if parts of it were cut off, those separated pieces could regenerate into complete forms by themselves. The girl was also attending the meeting, although she was still hungover. The scientist continued explaining that they currently had 14 reproduced hydras. Each one was being kept inside separate jars filled with liquid. All of them were portions of the original body that had regenerated into complete forms. Another scientist asked whether the reproduced bodies should be considered separate beings. The lead scientist replied that it was a good question because they had recently discovered something interesting. He held up a vial of H2SO4, more commonly known as sulfuric acid. A strong acid like that would normally produce heat upon contact with water. However, the hydras appeared completely unaffected by the sulfuric acid. To demonstrate, he inserted a wire into the container holding one of the hydras. Although the hydra did not die, it reacted strongly. Then he asked everyone to look at the other beakers as well. Not only was the hydra inside the sulfuric acid reacting, but every other hydra in the room was responding in exactly the same way. So, to answer the earlier question about whether the reproduced bodies were separate beings, his current answer was that they simply did not know yet. The girl looked confused and asked how it was possible if none of them were physically connected to each other in any way. The scientist admitted that this was also a question they still needed to answer. As she stared at the hydras, she felt strangely uneasy. Her friend then brought up what she had said the previous night. He repeated her words back to her, asking if she truly meant that a person had glowed like a firefly. Was she still hungover from drinking yesterday? Embarrassed, she laughed it off and admitted that maybe she still was. Then she hesitantly asked, what if, by some chance, a being like that really existed? Someone faster than a car, as strong as a dinosaur, and capable of controlling other species. Her professor calmly answered that if something like that truly existed, it would not be considered human anymore. It would simply become a research subject. The moment she heard the words research subject, she stopped listening. Later, at Cafe Chadu, the girl stood outside behind the glass door, quietly watching Jae-in from afar. Inside, he was cleaning coffee mugs when he noticed her standing there. The moment their eyes met, he excitedly began waving his hand at her. Soon, they all sat together again. She asked about Dawn. Her friend replied that he thought the date had gone well yesterday because she had gone to meet him again today. Then the girl turned toward Jae-in and asked if he remembered what had happened yesterday. Confused, he asked what she meant by yesterday. Slightly frustrated, she told him not to pretend he did not remember glowing. Jae-in casually replied, "Oh, that." He admitted that he did not know how, but somehow he had discovered that he could become anything. Then he asked her if that was not cool. She did not react positively. Seeing her expression, he immediately said that it was okay if she hated it and that he would stop. She then asked him if he could really become anything and what else he was capable of doing. Jae-in thought about it for a moment before replying, "What else? Let's see." Suddenly, he remembered something from his past and quietly mentioned something about human extinction. The moment he said those words, a worried expression appeared on the girl's face. She looked concerned after hearing that, while he simply stood there smiling blankly. A moment later, he suddenly came back to his senses and asked her what he had just said. She replied that he had mentioned human extinction. He looked confused and answered that he had not even realized he said that. She admitted that something about him felt off. He quietly replied, "Oh, I know something is off." She then told him that they would figure it out together. Hearing that made him happy. Later at the cafe, she brought him an experimental subject agreement form. The document stated that the subject had read all the details regarding the experiment, understood the possible risks involved, and agreed to personally participate in the research. Jae-in looked at the paper and asked what it was. She explained that it was simply an agreement document allowing them to continue conducting research on him, and that all he needed to do was sign it. She quickly reassured him that nothing dangerous would happen, and that he did not have to participate if he did not want to. But before she could even finish her sentence, he had already signed the paper. He showed her his signature and asked if it was fine. She replied that it was. Jae-in agreed to cooperate completely and told her that he was ready to do whatever she asked. Then he asked what else he needed to do. The next morning, when Dawn returned, she happily greeted him as she entered the cafe. He welcomed her back, but something about him looked strange. She pinched his face and asked what had happened to his smile and what the hell had happened to him overall. Jae-in explained that the girl had come earlier, taken some of his blood, made him drink something, and even put a hose inside him to examine his body. Then he casually added that some things had happened during the night. Dawn stared at him in confusion. Later that evening, the girl returned home feeling exhausted. She thought maybe she was simply getting old. As she lay down on her bed, she remembered how Jae-in had casually mentioned human extinction without even realizing it. She became convinced that it had something to do with his past before he lost his memories. While thinking deeply about it, she looked at a photograph resting on her nightstand. Earlier that day, she had submitted Jae-in's blood sample to a testing facility inside the lab. The scientist there reviewed the results and explained that Jae-in was simply a young, healthy male. According to every test, he was completely normal human. The scientist looked confused and asked her what exactly she had been expecting. Was there supposed to be some unusual result in the blood sample? She quickly replied no and told him not to worry. She said Jae-in was just a human with normal human blood. Then she thanked him and wished him luck with his work. As she walked through the corridor carrying the vial of his blood, she thought about how every single test result pointed toward the same conclusion. There was supposedly nothing special about him. He was just human. But then she remembered how he had glowed like a firefly and moved with the speed of a cheetah while using impossible powers. No human logic could explain any of that. She continued walking through the corridor while lost in those thoughts. Meanwhile, inside another laboratory room filled with multiple beakers containing hydras, two scientists were monitoring the specimens carefully. Suddenly, one of the hydras inside a beaker began moving violently, causing the glass container to topple over and shatter onto the floor. The hydra escaped from the broken flask, and at that exact moment, Ja-in felt it. At Café Chadu, Dawn asked Ja-in what had happened to him. Although he was physically present there, his mind seemed to be somewhere else entirely. She asked him once again what was wrong. Meanwhile, back at the laboratory, one of the scientists became furious and shouted at Chotu. The hydra had fallen onto the floor. He yelled at him to hurry up and bring another tank immediately. The hydra began moving toward him, burning the ground wherever it touched. He desperately shouted again for them to hurry. Suddenly, the hydra grew larger and wrapped one of its tentacles around the scientist, lifting him into the air. Another scientist finally brought the flask, but by then the hydra had already bitten the scientist before dying. The main body had died, yet the other hydras inside the different flasks still appeared completely fine. Then something strange happened. The scientist suddenly felt something moving inside his body. The hydra began growing through his veins. He screamed in agony. The other scientists panicked, calling out to the chief and asking what was wrong. Meanwhile, as Dwan was walking toward the room, she heard the commotion coming from inside the lab. She rushed in and demanded to know what was happening. The scientist begged her to help him. The chief had collapsed onto the floor and appeared to be in shock. White, foam-like saliva was coming out of his mouth. Dwan immediately told someone to call an ambulance. As she pulled out her phone and dialed emergency services, the chief's blood stained her hand. On the call, she identified herself as Gyeongjun Dwan from the IEU and urgently requested an ambulance. But before she could finish speaking, the chief suddenly transformed into some kind of monster and lunged toward her. He tried to attack her. Just as he was about to reach her, Ja-in suddenly appeared and knocked him away. Ja-in slammed the chief's head against the ground, causing him to lose consciousness. Dwan stared at him in shock and amazement, asking what he was doing there. Instead of answering, Ja-in asked if she was all right and whether she had been hurt anywhere. She replied that she was fine. Then she realized that the scientist who had transformed was her boyfriend. A moment later, she noticed a cut on Ja-in's hand. Maybe he had been scratched while trying to stop the chief when he went wild. A little while later, the ambulance finally arrived and took the chief away. Dwan then asked Ja-in how he had known where she was. Ja-in admitted that he was not sure himself, but he had felt the same strange feeling again that he had experienced earlier while looking at the car. Then he suddenly asked her to let go. Confused, she stared at him. Meanwhile, inside the ambulance, the chief slowly began regaining consciousness. As he woke up, he quietly warned them that this place was not safe anymore. He grabbed her hand and started dragging her away. She immediately tried to protest, asking what he was doing, where he was taking her, and telling him to let go of her. She asked what was wrong with him and what he meant when he said that place was dangerous. She also demanded to know what exactly he had been planning when he decided to bring her out there. Ja-in replied that it was difficult to explain in words, but it was really dangerous there. He said he had a bad feeling about it and asked if she could trust him just this once. Hearing that, she became speechless. While driving, she called her superior and apologized, saying that she was not feeling well and would be leaving early. After ending the call, Ja-in quietly thanked her. She told him that the test results had come out and that they were inside the glove box. He replied with the simple, "Okay." She explained that according to the results, his body was not actually that different from a normal human's. He looked surprised and asked if that was really true. However, she added that his cognitive abilities were completely beyond ordinary. It was because of those results that she had decided to trust his instincts and leave with him, even though he could not properly explain himself. His sensory results were inhumanly high, abnormally so. Then she brought up one more thing. She asked him if he liked her. He answered yes, he did. Then she asked how he felt about other people. He replied that he did not really care about them. She clarified that what she truly wanted to know was whether he hated others. Meanwhile, at the hospital, one of the scientists suddenly went completely out of control. He began shouting wildly and attacking the doctors around him, even biting them. A nurse rushed over and asked one of the doctors if he was all right. Suddenly, the scientist snapped out of his violent episode. The doctor demanded to know what was wrong with him. The scientist apologized quietly, and the two of them walked away together. Meanwhile, the chief's consciousness continued fading in and out. According to the reports, everything about him appeared normal. There was nothing physically wrong with his body, and he seemed perfectly healthy. The doctor asked him why he had suddenly collapsed. Then the doctor questioned whether anything had been stressing him lately. The chief answered no. But as he looked down at the spot on his hand where the hydra had bitten him, he already knew the truth. The steer was the reason. He needed to return to the laboratory. Back at the lab, the same assistant sat alone with a bandage wrapped around his hand. He had fallen asleep while sitting there when suddenly a mosquito landed on his neck and bit him. Half asleep, he slapped the mosquito on his neck and slowly woke up. But the mosquito had already flown away. Meanwhile, Ja-in and Ah-lesu had parked the car and were now standing by the roadside talking. Ah-lesu asked him about what he had said earlier regarding human extinction and his abnormally low levels of sympathy. She was certain that something must have happened to him in the past before he lost his memories. Ja-in looked confused and asked what she meant. She explained that it was fine because she hated humans too and that feelings like that could eventually get better. Ja-in admitted that he did not really understand what she was trying to say. Ah-lesu then confessed that what she was actually curious about was him. Finally, she asked him once more why he liked her. She asked him once again if he hated other people. Ja-in thought about it. In some ways, she was right. Humans were different from each other, yet somehow all the same as well. The source of everything was hatred. However, she was different. She asked him again why he liked her. They could hear the sound of the river nearby as they walked toward its shore. She told him that she truly wanted to know. He quietly answered yes. John raised his hand into the air and slowly moved it toward the river. Ah-lesu noticed the fish in the water beginning to move according to his will. Then he lifted his hand higher, causing the water to rise and form a massive floating bubble. The water kept rising higher and higher. She stared in shock at what was happening as a giant whirlpool formed around them. Then he asked her if she wanted to get on it. Terrified, she asked what he even meant by get on it. Without answering, he grabbed her hand, pulled her close, and jumped into the water with her. She clung tightly to him, convinced she was going to drown. Ja-in told her to relax, because her stiffness was making things harder for him. He asked her to calm down a little. She demanded that he let her down. He explained that she was only afraid because she was trying to resist. There was nothing to worry about, because he was there with her. As she slowly calmed down, they rose together to the top of the water. Ja-in explained that the land, the water, and the wind were just like everything else that always surrounded them. He asked her to relax and simply enjoy the feeling. Eventually, she calmed down completely and looked around her in amazement. Ja-in admitted that he liked this feeling and asked if she liked it too. Then he moved his hand through the air once more, causing birds to soar above them. Ah-lesu could feel the life surrounding her from every direction, and she laughed happily. Later that night, she lay relaxed on the ground beneath the sky. She thanked him sincerely, telling him that this was the best time she had ever experienced. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the chief realized that he had never felt anything like this before. He could tell without even running tests, the steer's main body was not dead. It was alive inside his body, using his nervous system as a host. Around 247 people already shared some kind of connection with him, and their numbers were continuing to grow. All of those people were slowly becoming hosts that the steer could eventually control, and all of them were sending the same message to the main body living inside him. Grow! The chief could not understand why that message was being repeated. Meanwhile, Ja-in and Ah-lesu sat together near the edge of the river, talking about human extinction. Ah-lesu admitted that the very fact such a thing was possible made Ja-in dangerous because she truly believed he was capable of doing it. Maybe he really could do something like that, but she reminded him that she was his guardian. She explained that she did not know what had happened to him in the past, but she believed it was her role to stop him from walking down that path, and she was choosing to do exactly. She told him that the reason she had decided to work at the IEU in the first place was to protect the beauty of the world. Ja-in replied that if she protected him, then she would also be protecting the world. Then he comforted her, telling her not to worry. Whether or not his memories ever returned, there was no way he would want to destroy the world she was trying so hard to protect. He promised that he would protect it too. Meanwhile, the steer virus continued spreading its message endlessly. Grow, kill them all, and Ja-in became certain that no matter what happened, he would protect her for sure. At the IEU, the scientists questioned why they had been told to leave early again that day. One person confirmed that everyone in the building had been ordered to leave. He admitted that the situation felt concerning. Ever since the chief had passed out in the laboratory, he had become completely different. Now he was difficult to even approach. Outside his office stood a locked entrance with a large no entry sign. Inside the office, the chief sat alone, trying to understand something while working on his laptop. The steers. The humans connected to him now numbered around 280,000, spread throughout the world. He realized just how dangerous this had become. Now he was faced with two choices, option A or option B. Among all the people in the world, why had it chosen him? Meanwhile, the news continued reporting major global events. Last week, the President of the United States had passed the world-changing Green New Deal after aggressive support pushed the bill forward. Many environmentalists had praised the decision. The chief wondered once again why it had to be him as his fingers slowly began to twitch and bend unnaturally. Another report appeared on the news. Republican Representative Gerald, who had strongly opposed the Green New Deal and was known for calling it socialist, had been found dead that morning at his estate. The chief quietly thought that this was fate. Another news report stated that at 2 p.m. talks would begin regarding changes to several important bills, including the Korean Green New Deal. The chief became convinced that he had been chosen for a reason. He believed he was the chosen one meant to create a better world. As he sat alone inside his closed office, someone suddenly walked in and declared that he had finally found him. It was Lee Ja-in. Ja-in looked at him and asked if he was the one causing all these problems. The chief asked who he was. Ja-in calmly introduced himself as Lee Ja-in. The chief asked again who the hell he was. Suddenly, the chief lost control of his body. Something about him changed completely. His glasses fell onto the floor as the steer began speaking through him. "So, you found me," it said. "Now what are you going to do?" Sometime earlier, while at the cafeteria, Ja-in had suddenly felt something strange. His hands began shaking as he noticed something unusual within them. Now, standing before the chief, he admitted that he was wondering if he should just kill him. The steer replied that just as Ja-in had sensed him, it had sensed Ja-in as well. Although Ja-in looked human, both of them had been born for the same purpose. So why was he trying to stop him? Ja-in answered that he was stopping him because he was putting Su in danger and he was simply trying to protect her. The steer explained that the reason it had remained quiet back at the laboratory was because it had not been strong enough then. But now, things were different. The steer raised its hand toward the door and signaled for them to come inside. Outside the office, the scientist standing behind the closed door suddenly felt something take over them. At the same moment, security guards, researchers, and everyone else inside the building developed glowing red eyes and began rushing toward Ja-in, ready to attack him. The steer calmly declared that humankind itself was his weapon. Ja-in immediately attacked the chief and replied, "Really? So what if humankind is your weapon?" He grabbed the chief's body, Oi, the host, and hurled him straight out of the window. Then Ja-in declared that his own weapon was nature. All the humans tried to attack him, but Ja-in suddenly jumped out of the window as well, catching the chief and staring directly at him. He carried the chief high into the air and flew with him far away from the city. Then he hurled him straight into a mountain. Ja-in was furious, yet the chief still managed to fall onto the ground alive. Ja-in demanded to know why he was not dead even after he had tried to kill him. He attacked him again and again, delivering countless punches filled with overwhelming power. Teeth flew out of the chief's mouth as blood poured everywhere. Ja-in beat him so brutally that the chief collapsed onto the ground, completely broken. But once again, the chief slowly stood back up, his face horribly swollen and covered in wounds. The steer looked at him in amazement and muttered that it truly was incredible. Why was it so difficult to kill him? Ja-in grabbed him by the neck and began strangling him, demanding that he speak. He wanted to know how to kill him. The chief, still controlled by the steer, grabbed Ja-in's hand. He explained that the cells could not penetrate Ja-in's body. Then he repeated that his true weapon was nature itself. He explained that his own body was mainly just a container capable of holding nature, but Ja-in was different. The chief raised one hand into the air and suddenly swarms of mosquitoes gathered around them. With another movement of his hand, countless wild animals came charging toward Ja-in. He calmly stated that he could rule over them as well. In response, Ja-in slammed his foot into the ground with immense force. The earth beneath the animals began to shift violently, making them completely helpless, as the chief's body was launched high into the air. From above, the chief looked down at all the animals, unable to do anything. Ja-in attacked, once again, throwing the chief's body violently through the air before tearing out a massive piece of flesh from him and hurling him back onto the ground. Then Ja-in coldly asked if he was finally done. The steer realized that he could not win. It wondered what it could possibly do against this monster. Then suddenly, it remembered the incident at the laboratory. It remembered how Ja-in had rushed in to protect the girl. At that moment, he understood Ja-in's weakness was her, the girl, Lesu. The chief's body suddenly stood up again, controlled by the steer. It said that it was unfortunate. This host had been quite interesting to use, but it seemed that he had been approaching things the wrong way. He should have thought of this much earlier. The steer activated itself inside several crows and sent them toward the chief's direction. Ja-in immediately warned him not to try any tricks. A flock of crows flew toward the chief's body and crashed into it. Feathers scattered across the ground before the birds rose back into the air again. Ja-in instantly understood what had happened. The steer had changed its host. The chief's body now lay lifeless on the floor while the steer had transferred itself into one of the crows. The crow was now the new host. The chief began speaking his final words. He said that he had always known things would end this way. He admitted that he did not know who the boy really was, but he had one favor to ask of him. He explained that Ja-in needed to go to the IEU and use his computer. Ja-in ignored him, saying that he was busy and still had something he needed to do. Then he began running into the forest. The chief shouted after him, telling him to use the A folder on his computer. After saying those final words, he died. Meanwhile, the new host, the crow, flew freely around the city. At Café Chadu, Lesu and Don were talking together. Lesu asked why there were fewer customers in the cafe today. Don replied by asking what she thought the reason was. She explained that it was because that kid had not been coming to work as often anymore. Don added that she could not even fire him and asked Lesu if she knew what was going on with him lately. Then she suddenly became suspicious and asked Lesu not to tell her that he had stopped coming because of her. She directly asked if something was going on between the two of them. Lesu quickly denied it and asked what she even meant by that. But Don asked again if Lesu was the reason he was no longer coming to work. Suddenly, Don placed her hand over her own mouth. She looked confused and explained that she was not doing it herself. Her hand was moving on its own. At that moment, the steer had already begun controlling her. Lesu called out Don's name and asked if she was all right. Don desperately told her to get away from her. Lesu stood there in confusion, asking what she was talking about and whether something was wrong with her. Don urgently repeated that she needed to hurry and move away from her. Lesu panicked, unsure of what she should do. Outside the cafe, countless people with glowing red eyes gathered around the building. They began smashing the windows and forcing their way inside Café Chadu. Every single one of them was searching for Lesu. Surrounded by so many people, she could not understand what was happening. She wondered if everyone had gone insane and what the hell was going on anymore. Then she looked toward Dawn. Dawn was going through the same transformation. Her eyes had turned red, and she suddenly tried to attack Lesu. At that moment, Ja-in appeared and rescued her. He slammed Dawn's head against the table while apologizing to his boss for doing so. Lesu stood there completely shocked. Ja-in looked at her and apologized once again, saying that he truly was sorry. Meanwhile, more infected people continued approaching her. A few days earlier, Dawn had shown Ja-in something on her phone and asked if he wanted to try it. He asked what it was. She explained that it was called an MBTI test and wondered what type of result he would get. In the end, his result came out as an ISTP personality type. Meanwhile, on the news channel, an urgent report was being broadcast. The reporter announced that a large number of people around the world had begun showing symptoms of a disease connected to the nervous system. The government believed that a highly infectious disease could be the cause. They had also received reports that some patients with weaker symptoms claimed they could sense an image and a message being transmitted through some kind of signal. According to all witness accounts, the subject shown in the message appeared to be a young Korean woman with long hair. The message itself urged people to rip her apart and bite her. The reporter wondered why symptoms of a disease with an unknown origin were suddenly appearing everywhere, and ended the broadcast by hoping everyone would stay safe during these dangerous times. On the news channel, the reporter explained that the first symptoms of the disease were minor muscle contractions. It would usually begin in the hands. However, the condition would eventually spread throughout the patient's entire body, causing uncontrollable movements. The World Health Organization had officially decided to name the disease the Wave. Meanwhile, two young boys were live streaming on their phones. One boy told his friend to say hi to the viewers. The other smiled and greeted everyone. Then the first boy explained that he thought his friend had the wave. His friend stretched out his hand for the camera. He could still lift it normally, but his fingers were twitching and moving in a strange way. The boy asked him what it felt like. His friend replied that it did not feel like he was moving his fingers himself. It felt more like someone else was controlling them. Surprisingly, he thought it was kind of cool. Someone in the comments claimed it was fake. The boy quickly defended his friend, saying that if it were anyone else, he probably would not believe it either, but his friend never lied. Then, more comments suddenly started appearing, telling him to look behind him. As he turned around, his friend's body began bending in an unnatural and disturbing way. The boy nervously told him to stop, because now even it looked fake to him as well. But before he could stop him, his friend suddenly opened the window and jumped out. The boy froze in shock, unable to understand what the hell his friend was doing. He rushed to the window and looked down, calling out his friend's name, but his friend was already gone. Outside on the streets, countless people were running in the same direction. They all had glowing red eyes, and his friend was running together with them. The boy stood there in confusion, wondering what was happening. Meanwhile, inside Cafe Chadu, a large group of people were trying to attack Alasu. Ja-in fought against them while realizing that every single one of them was specifically targeting her. It was not even subtle anymore. If that was the case, then he had no other choice. He looked at Alasu, told her to hold on tightly, and asked her to climb onto his back. Then he leapt high into the air and landed on top of a nearby building, leaving the crowd behind. Alasu looked worried and asked him what was going on. Ja-in explained that all of this was happening because of the steer that had been inside the chief. She tried to process his words and asked if he was telling her that he had killed him. Ja-in answered, yes. He had no other choice. Just look at what was happening around them. Even so, Alasu became furious. She asked how he could kill someone even if that person was the cause of everything. She also could not understand how he was showing no emotions about it at all. His face remained completely blank. She climbed off his back and moved away from him. Ja-in immediately tried to stop her. Alasu said that if the steer was truly the source of everything, then there had to be clues somewhere inside the IEU. They needed to return there. Ja-in calmly told her it was fine and said they could go together. He held out his hand and asked her to get back onto his back. She slapped his hand away. Confused, he asked what was wrong. Alasu replied that she could not understand him anymore, and because of that, she was going alone. As she turned away, Ja-in lowered his hand and suddenly remembered his mother standing in the field of daisies, telling him that she only got angry at people because she wanted to protect him. Just then, someone smashed through the door and entered the building. The man's eyes were glowing red. He had come to attack Alasu. Ja-in instantly stepped between them and killed the man. Alasu stared at him and repeated that she could not understand him. Ja-in quietly answered that it was simple. She was the most important person to him. If anyone tried to harm her, then he did not care what happened to them, even if they died. The man suddenly fought back against Ja-in and managed to bite him. Alasu shouted his name in panic, afraid that the bite had infected him. In response, Ja-in transformed into an electric eel and released a powerful electric shock through the attacker's body. Then he looked at Alasu and promised her that he would protect her. Meanwhile, the boy whose friend had jumped out of the window was still live streaming everything. He pointed his camera at Ja-in and showed the scene to his viewers live. He shouted at the audience, asking them if they were actually seeing this. The comments exploded instantly. People questioned whether it was real, if it was CGI, or if someone was filming a movie. Nobody understood what was happening anymore. At that moment, 210,038 people were watching the live stream of Ja-in transforming into an electric eel and attacking the man who had tried to hurt Alasu. In a conference room, an emergency meeting was taking place. Prime ministers, ministers, and health experts were all seated around the table, discussing the disease. One of them stated that he believed the thing spreading was some kind of muscular disorder wave. Another immediately opposed him, pointing out that nobody was showing any signs of muscle contraction. The Prime Minister slammed his hand on the table and shouted, asking if they were trying to tell him that nobody in the room had any clue what had caused the disease. They quickly apologized. Another person explained that they had been gathering patients who had shown symptoms since the morning and requested more time before producing proper results. The Prime Minister looked frustrated. What was he supposed to tell the public? He was the Prime Minister. Suddenly, someone rushed into the room for the Prime Minister. "What now?" he shouted. "Can't you see we're in the middle of a meeting?" The man, one of his assistants, apologized and explained that it was urgent. He thought everyone in the room needed to see a certain video. The footage showed Ja-in fighting the infected people. Lines of people continued pouring in through the terrace door. Ja-in realized that knocking them unconscious did not stop them. It was as if someone was controlling all of them. He looked behind him and spotted a crow with glowing red eyes perched on the building opposite them. Back, he slammed his fist into the floor, causing the ground to shake like an earthquake. He stared at the crow and asked when it had arrived. Then he charged straight toward it, attacking without hesitation. As he moved, he brushed past Alasu. The moment he attacked the crow, all the infected people froze for a brief second before suddenly moving again. Alasu tried to warn him, shouting for him to look behind. Instead, he grabbed her hand and told her that he would never do anything she disliked anymore. He asked her to come with him. He needed to protect her first. Lifting her into his arms, he told her to hold on tightly before leaping high into the air. Meanwhile, the boy was still recording everything live on his phone. The live broadcast was now being watched by the Prime Minister and everyone inside the conference room. The Prime Minister shouted at his assistant, asking if this was some kind of movie. The assistant replied that he had not believed it at first either, but after reviewing nearby security camera footage, they had confirmed that everything happening in the video was real. The footage was rapidly gaining attention. The entire nation was watching it in real time, and the assistant admitted that the situation was becoming concerning. The live broadcast was being shown on public televisions everywhere. People watched it in offices, on trains, in schools, and even inside military bases. One army officer stared at the screen and thought that this boy was not human at all, but a monster. The crows continued chasing them through the air. Ja-in noticed that they were not stopping, and he realized there was no other choice left. He would have to kill them. He turned around to look at the crows behind him, but then he noticed something else. His eyes shifted toward Lesu. She asked him what was wrong, but he had already seen it. She was hurt. She had been infected. There was a wound on her arm. From their research, they had determined that the disease originated from the IEU. It seemed that they had been researching a rare breed of hydra named steer, and the symptoms of the wave appeared to be related to that species. The man confirmed, "Steer." His subordinate confirmed that the files they found on the research team's computer at the IEU stated the same thing. He then handed him a pen drive and asked him to take a look for himself. All the people suddenly stopped showing symptoms. They were all clueless about what had happened to them and why they had been wandering the streets. Lesu looked behind her, confused about what was happening. Was everyone returning to their normal selves? "What is going on with everyone?" she asked. Ja-in explained that it was because they had accomplished their goals. She looked at the cut on her arm and realized what he meant, so they had managed to infect her through the wound. She had tied a cloth around her arm and wondered if the virus was like poison, if restricting the blood flow with the cloth would help stop it from spreading. Ja-in thought about it. He already knew the answer was no. There was no point in doing that, but there was one way. She asked how, a small glimmer of hope appearing in her eyes. He told her that they could cut off her arm. She immediately told him to shut up. He tried to grab hold of her, telling her that they did not have time and asking her to give him her arm. She resisted. The man inserted the pen drive into his computer and began reading the files. The first entry was dated October 12th. It stated that the main body of the steer had bitten the chief's finger before the steer died. The chief had passed out immediately afterward. However, after reviewing the CCTV footage, it appeared that the steer had tried to bite the researcher, Lesu, after losing consciousness. It was highly likely that the steer was the cause. The next entry was dated October 14th. He bit the doctor. He frequently loses consciousness and tries to scratch or bite others. However, for now, he can suppress these urges if he concentrates. The next incident was recorded on October 21st. After further investigation, he discovered steer cells within his blood. The steer had not died. It was using his body as a host. He could sense that he was connected to other steers, and the main body was continuously trying to increase its numbers. He felt connected to everything. On October 26th, the chief added that it was becoming difficult to control the infected individuals. A few days later, he discovered that he could not only control humans, but also animals and insects. Was he being controlled by the steer, or was he controlling the steer? He still was not sure what was truly happening. On October 31st, the chief wrote that the reason he had joined the IEU was to make the world a better place. With irresponsible population growth and the problems that followed, humanity would eventually drive itself to extinction if things continued this way. He finally understood why this had happened to him, why he had been chosen to receive this ability. He could finally do what he had always wanted, create a better world. Lesu and Lee Ja-in sat inside the car. She explained that if the infection had already spread through her body, then there was no point in cutting off her arm. Ja-in looked worried. She told him not to worry, saying that there had to be some clues inside the IEU. The final entry on the pen drive read, "However, if someone is reading this folder, then it means I have failed. And if that is the case, the steer must be eliminated. If the entity were to show hostility toward the human race, humanity would become extinct in an instant. The only way to eliminate the steer is to find the host and kill it." Luckily, finding out who the host was going to be, pretty easy. They reach IEU in the car. Soldiers are guarding the building. The soldiers state that visitors are not welcomed right now and ask them for what purpose they are here. She introduces herself as Lesu from IEU Research Team 2. She explains that he has an important reason for entering the facility. Meanwhile, in the White House, the men are standing there. It seems that the main body of the steer is residing within that researcher, and the man shown in the video is currently at the IEU. The man looks amazed. Back at the IEU, they are being escorted by the soldiers. The two of them stand there as a man welcomes them. He greets Miss Alisu and politely asks her to come this way while asking Ja-in to go the other way. She says that they have something they need to get from the lab. "Please cooperate with us and follow him," the man says as he grabs her arm. Ja-in gets angry and asks him what he is doing. "This is not the time to be doing all this." He looks at all the men surrounding them. The man in the suit tells him to cooperate with them. Ja-in is confused about what he should do, but then says that he does not want to cooperate. The man in the suit immediately announces for everyone to take aim at him. Once again, the man in the suit asks for their cooperation. As the soldiers point their guns at them, Ja-in suddenly remembers the same scenario from his childhood, when 3 men stood in front of him aiming their weapons at him. He shouts at them to get those things out of his face and starts getting angry. The man shouts that if he refuses, they will have no choice but to fire. Ja-in asks if he is really sure he wants to do that and starts moving forward, but Alisu stops him by placing her hand around his arm. He looks confused. The man immediately orders them to escort the two away. As they are escorted separately, they are still holding hands before finally being pulled apart. It is now nighttime. They are still inside the facility. Alisu is handcuffed. She asks the researchers why she needs to be handcuffed and says that they should at least tell her the reason. One of the researchers responds that she is being investigated because she has been infected by the steer. Another man enters holding something in his hands, saying that they are ready and can now begin. She cannot believe them. Meanwhile, at another place inside the facility, Lee Ja-in is sitting on a bench, also handcuffed, when someone enters to meet him. The person sits on a chair separated from Ja-in by a glass door. He introduces himself as Kim Seon-young, the Minister of Defense. Ja-in looks around uneasily and asks what kind of room this is. The minister tells him that a video of him went viral that afternoon and asks him to explain himself. Ja-in replies that he does not know anything and immediately asks where they have taken Alisu. The minister then shares that Ja-in's father was formerly a part of the National Security Administration and that he passed away when Ja-in was little. Ja-in points out that he had asked him a question. The man continues speaking. After Ja-in's father passed away, he read through his investigation notes. There was one story about an unnatural existence. His father died while trying to investigate that monster. Ja-in looks slightly surprised hearing those words. At that moment, another army officer enters the room and salutes him. He reports that Alisu's results have been retrieved and that they have confirmed she is positive. Ja-in immediately asks again where they have taken Alisu. The minister replies that they have found a way to deal with the steer. Ja-in asks what they can possibly do. The minister calmly responds that all they need to do is identify the main host of the steer and kill them. Ja-in is completely shocked. He suddenly gets up from the table and uses his energy. He tells them that this is all just a misunderstanding. The minister responds that everything they are doing is to save the world. Ja-in uses his power to strike the glass door, but the glass is bulletproof. It cracks, but does not shatter. The minister asks the army officer if he really thinks Ja-in cannot break it. Then he asks Ja-in to allow him to continue. He says that in the investigation files there was a picture of the monster. Seeing Ja-in's age, he tried convincing himself that it could not be true, but Ja-in still looks exactly the same. He takes out a photograph and shows it to him. It is a picture of Ja-in as a child with his mother. The minister asks him, "Do not you think so?" Ja-in begins remembering moments from the past. He remembers holding his mother's hand and asking her why she always fought. She had replied that it was to protect him. He remembers his mother, all of his past memories, and the day she died. Tears slowly begin falling from his eyes as he starts crying. A man enters to meet the Prime Minister and asks him to approve something. It is an official document from the government of the Republic of Korea. The document states that at the Environmental Industry Facility, IEU, they had been researching the rare muscle disease that had spread to the public. In order to stop the spread, they are taking the necessary step of killing the host, Alisu. The minister looks skeptical. Killing that researcher? Are they sure there is no other way? The man firmly replies that they are sure. They still do not fully understand what the fear is capable of, so it needs to be eliminated as soon as possible. He says that he understands why the minister is hesitant to approve it, but when comparing the lives of everyone against one person, he wonders if it is really that difficult a decision. In the end, it is a sacrifice that must be made for the greater good, he tells the president. The president finally agrees. He says that he understands. Taking his pen, he He signs the document. Words alone cannot solve anything. He places his official stamp onto the paper and approves the killing of Lisu. The man then takes the approved document to the team leader, informing him that they have received the approval. The team leader calmly replies that this was what he had expected, though it is unfortunate. He looks at Lisu, who is completely terrified. Meanwhile, the defense minister asks Ja-in why he was crying. Ja-in remembers everything about his mother, how she cried, how she never let go of his hand, and how in the end, she died protecting him. He replies that he simply remembered that humans have no reason to live. The minister says that something must have changed in him the day she died. It seems as though he came here to seek revenge. Ja-in replies that too much time has passed for that. He was too young back then. He does not even remember what his father looked like anymore. All he wants now is information related to the security of the nation. Ja-in coldly replies that he does not care what he wants. All he wants is that photograph, and if the minister gives it to him, he will not kill him right now. The minister asks him what would happen if he refused again. Ja-in suddenly punches the bulletproof glass once more, but this time with such intensity that it completely shatters into pieces. A blue light bursts from the room. He tells the minister not to refuse. If he were in his position, he would think twice before making a decision. The minister replies that Ja-in may not remember it, but continuing to act like the victim only makes him seem far more shallow than he expected. He asks Ja-in how many lives are taken during the lifespan of a single human being. Ja-in says nothing. The minister continues saying that because of him, he has lost many of his own kind. He has endured pain and suffering, and because of Ja-in's father, he lost his entire world. Yet Ja-in still dares to tell him what emotions he should feel toward his own kind. Ja-in says that he does not fully understand what he is talking about, but it seems that the smartest decision right now would be to hand over the picture. So the minister gives him the photograph. Ja-in quietly appreciates that he made the right choice and takes the picture of himself and his mother into his hands. The minister looks slightly terrified and asks if he is going to Lisu. Ja-in replies that in the end, it is only the death of a single human. It means nothing now that he has awakened once again. All the soldiers gather throughout the entire building. Only one room is emitting a blue light. Ja-in walks out of the room after breaking through the wall, leaving a large hole behind him. Blood covers the ground as he slowly walks forward. One of the soldiers rushes into the room, worried about his captain. He asks him if he is all right. The captain cracks his hand and immediately orders a change in watch level. The soldier replies that they are already at DEFCON 2. "Increase it by one more level," he orders. "WatchCon 1, full alert." Meanwhile, Lisu asks the researchers if what they are trying to say is that she needs to die in order to stop the steer. The man explains that yes, they have already received approval from the president. He apologizes but asks them to proceed with the procedure. Lisu asks him to wait a second because she still needs time to gather her thoughts. The man explains that it is her life against the lives of everyone else on the planet. It is unfortunate, but he hopes she understands that this is for the greater good. She begins to cry. She asks how they are going to proceed. He explains that they will use euthanasia and promises to make sure she passes away without any pain. The next day, Duan is running through the streets when she finally finds Ja-in. She shouts that she finally found him. Calling him by his name, she grabs his hand and asks where he has been because she had been searching for him everywhere. She asks if he was not with Lisu. She says that she has been trying to call Lisu, but she is not answering her phone. At that moment, the entire military force begins surrounding them. Soldiers aim their weapons at Ja-in, tanks point directly toward him, and helicopters circle above in the sky. Ja-in is their target. Duan becomes terrified, not understanding what is happening. In her hand is her phone, and on the screen is a wallpaper showing a picture of the three of them together. Back at the facility, the steer suddenly awakens just as they begin the procedure. As they inject her, Lisu grabs the syringe and stabs it into the man's neck. The others shout, asking what the hell she is doing. She says that she cannot control herself. Outside, the army commander gives the order to fire. Duan, terrified, hides behind Ja-in. Ja-in thinks about how disgusting all of this is. He remembers the moments they spent together. Then he remembers the defense minister's words. They need to identify the host of the steer and kill them. He remembers Lisu. An enormous blast of fire erupts into the air. A man suddenly shouts for everyone to stop firing and wait for his command. As the smoke from the first attack slowly clears, they see Ja-in still standing there completely unharmed. The soldiers stare at him in shock and call him a monster. Duan quickly hides behind a tank. Ja-in remembers both Chadwan and Ah-Lisu. He then asks her if she wants to go and see her. Ja-in remembers the defense minister's words. They need to identify the host of the steer and kill them. He thinks about how disgusting it all is, but wonders why he feels that way just because they look alike. Ah-Lisu and his mother are different, so why does he feel this way? The army tanks remain in position, waiting for the next command. Ja-in calls out to Chadwan and asks her if she wants to go and see Ah-Lisu. He asks her again why Ah-Lisu was not answering her phone and whether she might be hurt. Duan is crying, traumatized by the sound of gunfire around them. The army men continue standing there, waiting for the command to make their next move. As Duan sits on the ground crying, Ja-in tells her that those people are trying to kill both him and Ah-Lisu. She cannot say anything, and only continues crying. He asks her, in order to save even more humans, what does she think about this? Does she believe it is right? Still crying, she replies that she does not understand what he is talking about. She says that she truly does not understand anything right now. She is simply terrified. Meanwhile, the commander prepares the weapons once again. Before he can give the order to fire, Ja-in suddenly rushes toward him and grabs him by the neck, lifting him into the air. Ja-in says that humans always call it a sacrifice for the masses. He says he has always laughed at that idea of sacrifice. A true sacrifice is something a person chooses for themselves. It is not something forced onto another person. What humans really mean is the survival of the fittest. Those with power always step over the rights of the weak. The choice always belongs to the strong, and he has already made his decision. He tightens his grip around the commander's neck until his head explodes, blood splattering everywhere as his eyeballs fall to the ground. Ja-in thinks that this feeling is familiar to him. He is used to killing people. He has already crushed countless human lives before. He thinks that he will eliminate every last human in this world. He believes he had already made up his mind. But then he wonders why he saved her. Why did she look at him that way? That look disgusts him. He does not want her to look at him like that. It is dangerous. He needs to get rid of them, all of them. The army continues moving forward when a massive explosion suddenly erupts, killing all the men around him. Only Ja-in survives. Duan watches everything in complete shock. Above them, helicopters circle through the sky while news reporters continue broadcasting everything live. One of the reporters speaks in complete panic. Did everyone just witness what happened? This terrifying situation? The mysterious man from the videos is slaughtering those soldiers. Bodies are scattered everywhere, and the military forces do not even have a chance to retaliate. This is devastating. A complete massacre. Due to his existence, the government has officially declared WatchCon won. The reporter's trembling voice echoes through the broadcast. What in the world is he? Below them, the battlefield has turned into chaos. Soldiers' bodies lie everywhere. Some are torn in half, while others have been completely beheaded. Even then, several soldiers continue fighting desperately, firing their weapons toward him without stopping. Ja-in watches everything silently. He learned the language of humans. He learned the personalities of humans. As bullets continue flying toward him from every direction, he thinks about how he learned the world of humans itself. Humans always believed they were the center of the world. Countless thoughts begin crossing his mind. He thinks about the elephants whose tusks were violently cut away for profit. He thinks about the fish that died in polluted oceans and rivers because of human greed. He remembers all the animals slaughtered for meat, the crocodiles skinned for luxury products, the rabbits trembling in fear, the dogs crying helplessly, the monkeys captured and locked away. He experienced the pain of every life form. Meanwhile, the soldiers standing before him continue attacking him without hesitation. To him, all living beings are equal. He feels neutral toward life itself. But what he truly despises is the pride humans possess, the arrogance humans carry as though the world belongs only to them. Slowly, he bends down and picks up a large rock from the ground. Without even changing his expression, he throws the rock toward the helicopter above, the one carrying the news reporter and cameraman. The rock cuts through the air at terrifying speed. A second later, it strikes the helicopter directly. The helicopter instantly bursts into flames. The reporter's screams are drowned out as the aircraft loses control. Burning debris falls from the sky, raining ashes and fire everywhere before the helicopter crashes violently. Smoke spreads through the battlefield. Even after causing all of this destruction, one thought still remains inside him. He wants to protect Duan. Somewhere deep inside, he has also begun learning what it means to think like a human. Thoughts of the hunter cross his mind, then his mother, then Ah-Lisu. He wonders what it truly means to be human. Not far away, one of the soldiers lies brutally injured on the ground, barely alive. Blood covers his body as he struggles to breathe. Even while standing at the edge of death, the soldier slowly reaches for his gun. With trembling hands, he points it toward Ja-in and fires. Ja-in stares at him in confusion. He feels disgusted. Even after being wounded so badly, the man still chose to fight. Even then, he continued resisting. The bullets strike Ja-in, yet he remains standing. At that moment, Duan suddenly runs toward him. Terrified and shaking, she grabs his arm tightly with both of her hands. Her voice trembles as she begs him not to kill the soldier. Fear is clearly visible in her eyes. Ja-in looks down at her silently. In the end, he realizes that he cannot let go. Even without confirming it himself, he can already tell. Something inside him has changed. His thoughts drift once more toward the defense minister's words. They need to identify the host of the steer and kill it. Everything is being done to save humanity. Ja-in wonders if this was what Alisu had been thinking about all along. No matter what happens in this world, he decides that he will protect her. The battlefield remains covered in smoke, fire, and blood. The surviving soldiers continue trembling in fear as they stare at him from a distance.